this is our technical mission statement, which is our official statement. But I think what this speaks to is the fact that this is a program where we really are engaged in being thinkers and makers in the world. It's not about um, just learning an X, Y, and Z. It's like, how do we become the people who shape culture, who shape, ideas around the camera, around lens-based mediums, and, really kind of try to expand what that means in this moment. You'll get the history, you'll get the context, there will be theory. There are these kind of important in influxes of information that come through the coursework, but really we want to be actively engaged. And I think that speaks to what, Andy mentioned about the faculty, which really does make CalArts, I'll say, like pretty unique, is that the faculty really, we are out in the world making art and engaging with institutions and spaces and, the public in ways that are always pushing at that. And at least, I can speak for myself, like that is very much what like motivates me to also be in the classroom and share these kind of experiences and ideas with, this next realm and like cohort of artists who are coming through. I don't know. You could tell me to like move forward, Andy. We're kind of ad-libbing this a little bit, but I can I don't know. You want me just to keep going or
Are you asking me?
yeah, I don't want to like just
I,
talk the whole time. So if you want to chime in or,
no, I think look, it's always one of the things that also happens is we sort of discover what each other think about our jobs. And so it's interesting to me to hear how you perceiving the job right now and how it works for everybody. Um, so you can make no mistakes in my book.
yeah. Yeah, and so, there's a slide that has a bit of, the overall faculty. I highly recommend looking at what people are doing when you're looking at a program and kind of because these are the people you're going to be talking to and engaging with. And, we have a breadth of people who really have diverse practices. And I think that's another strength so that you can have somebody it seems like they're coming from different places, but all of those influxes of commentary and conversations, and I kind of skipped over the mentoring slide a little bit because it's a lot of words, but really, a strength is that you're having these very close interactions with faculty. You have independent studies, which are like hour-long meetings in your studio. You'll are assigned a mentor who really kind of tracks your you interact with throughout the course of whether that's BFA or MFA, just to have like a point person to help navigate the space and really, sometimes help with the more practical questions at times. And I think, what builds out of that are, it builds into the network of Los Angeles and where alum exist or studios exist. So you kind of got filtered out into the world through these relationships as well. Um, there are some slides with some work of the faculty that comes up next. Maybe I'll go through those. It's slightly embarrassing because I come up first, but we'll just keep going. Let's wait. I can't even move slides now. What happened? There we go. Hit that one. So this is just some examples of recent work I've done in the last 2 years. What you'll see is a photographic based practice, but I also work in installation and kind of how you build the environment in which the photograph is being experienced. Also kind of more formal kind of, I still shoot film. I still frame my photographs and hang them on walls, so there's different ways in which I approach looking at work, but my practice is really rooted in my indigenous roots in Los Angeles. So I have the fortune of working and teaching in my ancestral homelands of Los Angeles. And so that's part of what I do. There's a recent installation at the Getty that I was commissioned to do, which is clearly more sculptural than photographic, but I think, the way that I think about the photograph or the way that I think about all my work is tied to my studies of the photograph. And I studied my MFAs in photography, so it's really my roots and why I like teaching in that realm or this realm. This is another faculty, Ashley Hunt, who does a lot of work around abolition and community kind of activated spaces. So this was a exhibition at, I believe, Claremont College. And a lot of this involved takeaways and these kind of newspaper kind of printout media that was for disseminate. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to say that word. It's too late in the day. Sending out into the world in a way, like as a takeaway. And this work revolved a lot around prisons, that prison spaces.
Dissemination.
Thank you. This is some work by Harry Gamboa. Harry Gamboa is kind of like a legendary storyteller. Is that a good descriptor, Andy? He, yeah, he was part of the group Osco, really involved in the formation of Chicano art and yeah, dialogue in Los Angeles, and he does these classes that are still activating in the streets of Los Angeles. You'll walk around on these large, long tours. It's a walking class, and you really get to understand the history and the context of place in a really specific way. I will say, yes, CalArts is like a little bit outside of Los Angeles, but being adjacent to a city like Los Angeles, I mean, I'm partial, I'm from here, but I also went to grad school somewhere else. And I'll say that the system of art here, I don't know if system's the right word, but the way, like, there's a lot of support in a lot of ways and a lot of avenues to kind of exist. And being in proximity to so many culturally rich sites and experiences is really helpful. And Harry's class is like a, dive deep into that. Okay, now we get into some, I don't know if I should pause. I can just keep talking if um so this is more of like the nuts and bolts of the program, We have um extensive facilities for production, and that's both analog and digital. So we really support production, whether that's film, darkroom. We have a color processor, which is really unique to, I think, anywhere right now. And so you can really learn those kind of hands-on analog skills. We also have, it was that slide before, this kind of digital spaces that are, there's all color balanced monitors and viewing stations. So you really can be supported in either of those mediums. We also have an extensive and building array of moving image technology. So whether those are cameras for video and film and sound. So that's also part of our program too. And so, I'm happy we can in the Q&A answer any of these questions. There's a lot of tech stuff on here, but you can really have the freedom to work. One big asset of the campus is that once you're kind of signed off on knowing how to use the facilities, it is a 24-hour campus. And so, your studio production time really, you can really take true advantage of these spaces that to really have you explore and make the work that you want to make. Let's
One of the,
see.
can I
Yeah,
chime
go ahead, go ahead. Good.
in? One of the things that I think is a common and important question that hovers around photography these days is, you can end up in this little conversation about, well, do you shoot film or you do shoot digital, or is this a technical issue or is this a conceptual issue? And one of the things about this program is that we're making space for making work that considers all of these things. So, for example, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of knowing how to make a really fantastic black and white traditional print, you can do that here. If you want to spend your time thinking about concepts and shooting, and that is not how you want to produce your work, that's okay. The point is that the facilities offer the possibility to approach it in a lot of different ways. Because at the end of the day, art is something that you're looking at, and you have to decide how you want somebody to see it. And you have to decide what are the characteristics of it, and what is the content, what's the form, what's the subject, and what's the object. The facilities are the base to sort of figure out how to solve those problems. It can be on some days the place where you go figure out how the hell do I use a Hasselblad, or how do I use this digital camera, or what am I doing with this large format digital printer like an Epson or a Canon 4000, or how do you use a mural enlarger. The point of the program is to offer enough of that material so you can explore it and figure out what you're producing, both from your mind and then also for a visual space. So the technical facility is a really, the lab is a really important kind of studio in and of itself. As people go down there and they start working on things and they're having different kinds of conversations simultaneously. Is that too pink? Is that too magenta? Is that too red? And then they're talking about the content, and then they're talking about the number of things that they're trying to put together, and how do you display it. So when Mercedes, when you're showing, the picture of the Getty with a with the shells floating in space, the first thing I'm thinking, for example, is, oh, did you put up the curtains or did the Getty put up the curtains? And what do you think about that? Right? We're thinking about not only the material that's being used, but then how does it communicate information? And that is the difference between a vocation and a discipline, right? This is not necessarily the place to come to learn how to be a commercial photographer. However, I can tell you that some of the best commercial photographers in Southern California, they went to art school. They didn't go to a commercial photography school. And the reason that is because you have to know how to understand what you've made and how it communicates. It could be social, it could be formal, it could be political, it could be internal, it could be psychological, it could be a variety of different things. So that space is both a kind of a feel good space, like I need to go learn something, but it's also the place where you figure out how to make the stuff you want to look at. And that's what all of us kind of do. Great day. I might have a day where I'm talking about, I don't know, Derrida or something like that. And then I might also have a day where I'm trying to tell somebody, no, man, that's not red, that's magenta. Right? You have both of these because that's your studio space, right? You have people that are willing to engage you with your material in the way you need to engage it. And that could be intellectual, it could be conceptual, it could be material, it could be form, right? So those spaces are super important. And that's why we still have a 50-inch color processor, because it still matters, right? It still has this very important function for me making artwork. Sorry, that was very long-winded, but that's a really important space.
Yeah. I mean, I should have put this on while you were talking, but these are some of the production spaces, in the lab, people working, whether that's in the dark room or the film processing area. Um, and the part of the beauty of the program also is the community that exists in those spaces. I love seeing the lab full of people and sharing ideas. So, you know, there's not just the classroom interaction, but there's the interactions that happen out and about in this space, that I think are really important and enriching and part of why we keep building in these ways and prioritize these spaces. We also have studios. So I'm going to skip that and just go to this picture, which is a bit like hectic. So I apologize. There's a lot of different studios represented here. What the prior slide was explaining is as a BFA one, you um don't really have you kind of work within the photo lab area, but as you move up into the program, you'll get a shared and then usually a solo studio as you kind of move up through the program. MFAs have, a dedicated studio space from the beginning. The studio, I think sometimes people question like what does that mean and why do I have this? And it really becomes this test space or a place to look at what you're making or kind of have these interactions with other people, whether that's your classmates or the faculty, to really kind of speak through and talk through what you're doing. As a photographer I don't take like pictures in the studio. My work, photographs are outside. And I was like, when I was younger, I was like, I don't need a studio. What is this for? Because I work outside and I don't take, studio portraits with lighting and such and backdrops. Some people do. And then I finally, got a studio. I was like, oh, it's such an important like thinking space. It's important test space, somewhere you can go that's dedicated to this area of your life that you can really commit to like what you're trying to do there. So I always get excited getting into people's studios and seeing what's going on. Tell me if I'm going through this too fast. And then the other component of that is another thing that I think makes CalArts super exciting and really helpful when you're like moving out into the world post school is part of the experience is that you will put on multiple exhibitions. This varies from BFA and MFA, and I know there's like a mix of both and transfers, so there's a little bit different schedules, but all students will have at least or two solo exhibitions are part of the curriculum for both BFA and MFA. There's additional kind of exhibitions that happen, but I'm just highlighting the solo exhibition space because, you know, it's entirely another kind of skill and ability to conceptualize what your work does out in the world for, a viewer. And, we kind of make these we're really actively engaged in what we do and what we're dedicated to and passionate about. But how does that kind of move out into the world and what does that mean? And so, as part of the time at CalArts, you get this opportunity and it's your opportunity. You hang the show, you build the idea, you build the concept. And so I believe I skipped over that. There's 8 gallery spaces. Am I getting that right? Yeah, 8. And so there are various spaces throughout the campus. Another thing that makes that really fun is there's always art up on the campus, multiple people showing 8 different people. Sometimes there's class shows, which is different, but there's always art up, and every Thursday night is this moment where people kind of come together and have these receptions around the shows that are up. And so you really get to see what students within the art school are doing. So this isn't just photo media, but it's also the uh, our program, but the art program as well. And so you really get to see what's happening on campus and what people are doing. And it's really, I always tell my students, especially in the beginning, like the BFA ones, to go look and really pay attention, not just to the content, but like the strategies and what makes like what do you respond to? And there's a lot of idea gathering and sharing that can happen there as well to really know what it is you want to do for your own work. So it's kind of a constant learning experience as well, just in having these exhibitions, in addition to you having the experience and kind of uh, practice to have your own exhibitions as well. Um,
We'll do video. You can see in the top center there, there's
yeah,
somebody.
here.
That's a gallery space. That's not a theater, and that's an intentional installation of a single channel video,
Oops, I'm so sorry.
right?
Sorry. Go
In
ahead.
in a room, right, where somebody's considering what it would be to have a moving image in that space. And then it's very interesting because in this image you see in the very bottom center a very concisely laid out in a grid form kind of piece, and then right above it you see a kind of salon style um, piece there, and they're really those decisions are talked about, with colleagues, with other students, but also with the faculty. So in one sense, you can see that at least the one in the top is hung salon style. Like those are all portraits of people. They have a kind of casual nature to them. They're familial, right? There's something personal about them. So the organization is sort of laid out in this more open form, right? And then the one in the bottom, even though I can't really see what that is, I actually know what it is. That's an organizational process, right? Where somebody's comparing image to image and building up an argument based on building up a perception of what they're doing by organizing it in this kind of squared square way of details, making you compare one thing to the other, right? It's super fascinating how people solve the idea of sharing information in the studio, in an exhibition site. And that is something that people do. Foundation students, BFA ones, will do a show at the end of every semester. MFAs will do a show at the end of well, they have a walkthrough and then they do an MFA one show, group show, and they do both a mid-res and a final exhibition. Some people solve their final exhibition by not doing uninstalled work. They might do a performance or they might make a series of books and distribute them. It really depends on what it is that your process, your work, and your ideas want to propel, right? Go ahead, please.
Okay. See what's next then.
Oh, I'm dying to see what's on this list.
Um, I feel like this is what we're kind of talking about. Oh, that's a course catalog. Do you want me to leave that up so people can QR code that? Maybe.
Yeah, if anybody wants to,
I
but
can also go back to it if, or
please.
can go in the chat maybe.
Yeah, this is the link for course catalog. If you're more interested in information about the curriculum, such as required classes and optional classes, it's very easy to take classes outside of your own program. So that's always something we emphasize because CalArts is truly based and founded on interdisciplinarity. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities to take classes in theater and in critical studies, film and video, dance, whatever. It's we're a very welcoming institution for that specifically. So I'll just put the link here to the course catalog if you're curious to see some of those classes. And this is one of the examples. So.
Yeah, this is a bunch of different the walking class I was mentioning with Harry Gambo is up here in the top left corner. Yeah, there's a huge variation of what's offered. I remember when I was applying
Five
to school.
schools. It has a performing arts school, it has a music school, it has a film video school. Obviously, it's famous for character animation, right? So it's an unusual place in that it has a lot of people, theater, right? So it's an unusual place because most art schools, small art schools, tend to be focused on either performing arts or visual arts or one thing or another. It's unusual in that we have so many different kinds of art practice under one roof, which means if you get burnt out and you want to go hang out and watch the jazz concert, you can go do that. If you want to go to see a theater production, there are several theaters in the building, black and white, right? If you want to go watch films, they're down the hall, right? It's a place where there's the possibility for a lot of cross-disciplinary engagement, but it also is a place where those are your choices and you have to know to seek them out, right?
So you want to talk a bit about the talent show and the class that Harry teaches?
Yeah, I
I
mean, I
think
mentioned a little bit about Harry's class walking through Los Angeles. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is a photograph of it, and you really do spend hours walking through Los Angeles or getting on the metro, learning the space, but also really hearing this kind of deep history and experience from Harry, who's lived here, I think, his entire life. There's talent show that is down there is a collaboration that one of our faculty, Sharon Lockhart, does with somebody I believe it's in dance. Is Ariel in dance? I'm not sure, but a dual program class where you kind of participate in this talent show, and which is about kind of performing and getting on stage. But there's this kind of final presentation at Red Cat, which I know I kind of skipped through earlier, but Red Cat is a art space downtown LA that's connected to CalArts, and so this performance happens there. That's kind of so there's opportunities
Across
to
the
kind of,
street from Mocha and the
yeah,
road.
yeah, right. But yeah, there's just a really diverse set of classes and interesting topics happening. You this is a class that went to the Venice Biennale. This predates me, so I don't I did actually go with a couple of students to this year's Venice Biennale. Maybe I should put this in, but it looks like Kashila took a group of students to experience that. So there are opportunities for these faculty who kind of get engaged in other places in the world. And sometimes there's opportunities for the kind of offsite experience. If there's more context to that I don't know, feel free to
I
chime
guess
in.
sort of
But
talking about student opportunities there, one of the things that's also, present is there are a number of ways in which students do other things besides go to school or make art here, right? So if you're a BFA student and in your third year you want to do an exchange in Glasgow, or you want to go to Berlin, or you want to go to Paris, it's possible to consider that and apply to do such a thing. Sometimes there's a particular event that happens at someplace like the Venice Biennale, or New York, or any other place, or in Santa Fe, like you're working on, and a group of students will go and do that. Sometimes there's a field trip class. I've led many field trips for 10 days throughout the Southwest for a tour of very bizarre installations around the Southwest, including the Titan missile silo and White Sands, and then, some other kind of interesting place like Arcasante. Um, there are these opportunities that are about not just staying locked in the building, because we are kind of citadel, and it has this fabulous way of being this opportunity to disappear in what you make, and then there are these opportunities to leave and go do something else and come back, right? I think those things are really, really important.
yeah, right now there's a lot of there's something being organized where, students are being taken out in classes to see all the PST like there's a big art initiative in Los Angeles where there's like 70 exhibitions, and so they're taking students out in regional groups to go experience those spaces and really like go and talk about the work and these exhibitions out in the world, locally. But I'm gonna go a little quick because I feel like
Well,
Q&A will probably be the move here. There's just some examples of alumni work, people have gone out into the world. Um, this was a recent alum who does this fantastic practice here in Los Angeles. He was recently in the Hammer Made in LA show this last year. I think he's the youngest person who's ever been in that exhibition in its in its history. But he makes these photographic postcards that he sells from the back of this car. And so he's an incredible photographer, but also really engaged in what it means to be of a place and the practice of sharing and engagement and the critique around tourism. I mean, it's very complicated but really fun work. But I am going to highlight that there is a section of the web page that, if you want to kind of get into looking at what alumni have done or are doing recently, this is in the kind of progress, so it might not be super like, last month kind of moment, but you can look at other alumni work that has happened. I'm pretty sure this QR code gets you there on your own.
Project Archive.
Yeah. What was that?
It's the Project Archive.
Yeah, to the archive. There's also, yeah. And then there's this magazine that comes out that talks about CalArts happenings. I don't know if there's another way to say that. This is the last slide, so I'm going to unshare so that we have some time for